songwriters from here and away. This is a show that focuses on new and established songwriters from Atlantic Canada, across Canada, and around the world. This week we have Bill Stevenson. Bill is a piano player, songwriter, and performer. He also tunes pianos. We got together at his place, sitting around his lovely Yamaha grand piano, and we had a chat. If you ever get a chance to see him, definitely go check it out. Here's Bill.
I've been here since 1974, so.
Oh, okay, good. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Ottawa. I've been a Nova Scotian resident since 1974.
And you've been in this house since, did you say 88?
88,
Yeah,
March of 88.
It's a lovely spot, and you're just a hop, skip, and a jump from the Dingle Tower. Is that what they call that?
Yeah, down the street is the Dingle Tower. Out our backyard is the Frog Pond Park.
Right. You spend your time here at the piano a little bit, do you?
Yeah. I get up in the morning, I usually play for a while, and then I go about my business during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I get home, I usually play for a little while. And
yeah,
right now, more than a money maker for me, or even a career, it's just a source of solace.
Yeah, a meditation.
Yeah.
I find, I play piano as well, as you know, and I will do the same thing sometimes. Just go sit down and go somewhere.
Yeah.
Playing, who knows what notes are coming out,
Yeah.
and just play. And it's a meditation.
I think that, if you follow the course of the invention of music, right, that's what it was invented for. The first notes came from.
Articulations, we started singing and making noise, right?
Yeah, and the certain, our language. Betty and I often notice people on TV when they use the, that rising inflection at the end of every sentence now.
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know why that started, but certainly inflection, and in many different languages too, it means everything.
Yeah.
And music captures that, I guess, in a different way.
Yeah. You were schooled, and you've been playing professional gigs, doing mostly jazz, from what I know, jazz, blues stuff.
Yeah.
Or everything.
I play anything, really.
Yeah.
My interest is lately the jazz language.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And what's interesting, the more I get into it, the simpler it gets, in a sense. Like if you take a jazz phrase, a lot of times it's a direct quote. A friend of mine who is a classical, she and her husband were the people that sort of started me in the business when I was younger.
Oh, yeah.
A great deal younger. And anyway, every time I would visit them, they would always say, "Oh, Bill, sit down and play us a tune." One of my favorite tunes to play for them was a... And inevitably, she would always say, it's funny, in classical music, when you quote some other song, it's called plagiarism.
But in jazz,
it's called inspiration. And it's true.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was in classical music too, but then, the publishers got a hold of the classical music, so they wanted to
Well, we all know what business does to the music.
That's right. It's kind of interesting, really. It's it's a really interesting thing.
Yeah. How long have you've been writing songs?
Yeah, I started writing songs a long time ago.
Yeah.
I can remember the very first tune, the first song I wrote, in fact, was when I was 8 years old.
Do you still remember it?
I do.
Let's hear it. I'd love it.
I don't know if I sing it in the same key. Madame Badero, she sat on her husband's sombrero. Her husband was a wicked man and hit her on the head with a frying pan. That was it. Yep. And
That's great.
I wrote that on the way to school. Just like you do when you're a kid, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
And I remember the next song I wrote too. Okay, gee, if I can remember it. Oh yeah. Whole town is gathering round, people coming from miles on down, and I'm willing to stake this year's corn. There's a new child coming, it won't be long. Look at Mary walking to the well. See in her belly she got something wants to yell. Look at Harry chopping wood. See in his belly that he's feeling good. Here we are in the autumn of the year. Come to thinking that it's kinda queer. Man, they married late last fall. Guessing love weren't the only thing at all.
I'm guessing you weren't 8 years old when you wrote that one, though.
No, I was 16.
Yeah, a little more mature. It has the kind of a southern bluesy sort of a thing to it.
Well, you know what? A friend of mine who was in the band, he was in a band at that time, he was a little older than me. He was in the band, the Esquires.
Oh, okay.
Remember the Esquires? Bruce Coburn was in that band for a while.
Yeah.
And anyway, he was into the blues. His name was Clint Herlihy, and bass player for the Esquires at that time. And he had heard me at a hootenanny, because that's what you did in those days, right? When I was 16, you went to hootenannies, and I played the guitar.
Oh, okay.
And he said, "Oh man, you should come and listen to this." And he took out an old record that was like an Alan Lomax collection
One of
of
the folk recordings.
Folk recordings.
Right. Yep.
And they were all songs like from work gangs and
sharecroppers and
sharecroppers and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've heard some of those records.
Lots, yeah.
And so I just sort of mirrored that thing.
That
I mean,
vibe,
that's what you do.
Yeah,
that's how other people learn songs, and you know, or wrote songs.
Yeah,
they would take just a regular sort of a template for a song. So many of the songs were, you know, the blues songs were written in order to make time pass quicker.
Right, work songs, like you say.
Work songs,
thing,
right? Yeah. And that whole way of approaching music. Mm-hmm. And So I guess that's where that song came from. I wasn't aware of it at the time,
Yeah.
but a lot of times you do things when you're not aware of it, just because you absorb what's around you, right?
Where did you go? Where did you get your start with any given song? Was it always at the piano, or do you have lyrics too, or how did they come together at the same time, or what?
Well, that's a really good question. Uh, I know one of the songs that I wrote years ago when Skip Beckwith came to town, right?
Right.
He moved down the road from where I was living. He built a house there. He had been working in Toronto, but he was from Cape Breton originally. And anyway, just because we were kind of neighbors, I was involved with him at CBC a little bit, for something else I was doing.
Right.
And he wanted to have a recording studio. He was building one, right? This was in the 70s, so that was before everyone had a recording studio
Right.
in
Yeah.
their house, right?
Yeah. Everybody and their
So
dog
this
has
was
one now.
Yeah, it was. And he said, "Come on out and record some." So I said, "Well, He says, "Have you written any songs?" So I said, "Yes." And then I wrote a song. You know what I mean? Like, so, and yeah, and we recorded this with Jeff Arsenault and Tom Easley
Great.
on that album, 9 Steps.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I do it in this key anymore, but I got a bird up in a willow, bird up in an apple tree, bird up in a willow, bird up in an apple tree. One flies high, by and by, both fly away from me. Oh, baby. Honey, don't you worry, baby, don't you trick on me. Honey, don't you worry, baby, don't you trick on me. Think about you, baby, the way you used to sit down on my knee. Oh, baby. You're a river and you're rising, you're a tide and you're a flowing high. River and you're rising, tide and you're a flowing high. Standing by the river, watching the tears flow by, you made me cry. Oh, baby. You're a river and you're rising, tide and you're a flowing high. River and you're rising, tide and you're a flowing high. I'm standing by the river, watching the tears flow by. You made me cry, oh babe.
Lovely. I love that. The piano sounds great, Bill. You're
Is
a lovely player, and the piano sitting here in the room with it, it's a really nice Yamaha grand
Is it
piano.
ever, eh? It's a really good piano.
Really good quality, smooth
You
through
know-
all the register and everything. Yeah, really
Yeah,
nice.
it's all working.
Yeah.
The I got this piano almost by accident, and I'd been tuning it for 15 years,
Going into somebody's house,
Yeah.
and tuning it up. Yeah,
and it belonged to someone from who lived in the summertime in Port Maitland when things started to get tough with the pandemic.
right.
They said, "That's it. We're out of here. We're moving from Florida. We're not going back." And so they told me, they said, we don't know if we can get it up here. The quote we had to move it up here was $15,000. I said, "That's too much." So he said, "Do you want this piano? We don't have room for two pianos." I said, "I can't afford it." He said, "Make me an offer." I made him an offer. He took it, and I got the piano, and I just finished paying for it.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So-
Well, it's a real beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't ask for a luckier course of events
Yeah.
for me in
Yeah.
pianos,
Yeah, so if anybody wants to hire you as a piano tuner in the HRM Halifax area, they just give you a call or
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
My name and my email is listed on the Dr. Piano
Page. Okay.
Dr. Piano page of piano tuners,
Good.
and I'm quite busy. But I if anyone wants me to tune their piano, I'll certainly talk to them about it.
Put them on the list, hopefully, yeah, or not.
I
yeah.
would,
Yeah.
it's something I really enjoy doing.
So that's a few days a week you're tuning pianos, and on Mondays you're at NSCC doing a lesson
Yeah.
or two and
Yeah.
and an ensemble thing. You said an 8-piece ensemble you're teaching?
Yeah, there's I got 3 vocalists and then 3 guitar players, a
Ah.
bass player and a drummer, and sometimes there's a piano player that shows up, but he hasn't been showing up lately. He plays French horn, so I think he was just coming there to. I think he's more into French horn.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, they're a good lot, and you know what? And I think you've forayed into the teaching world a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And I think you learn more from your students than they learn from you. I really do.
Yeah, and I mean, when I've done a little bit of teaching a few years back, it made me rethink my place at the piano.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you rethink everything because you're trying to bring it to someone else. So you want to make it as clear as possible, and you end up making it clearer to yourself. So
Yeah.
it's
You
good.
distill it down.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
So, do you want to play another song of yours? We'd
let's
love to
see.
hear one. We've got.
Let's see what
we've
else
got
I
time
did.
to do a few. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, this is Santa is Sam. I'm writing a letter to you, Becky Sue. Tell you something I don't want you to do. Let's go to San Francisco. Fire all around, and even the beautiful Palace Hotel burned down. Girls don't work, man, they just sit around in good old San Francisco. I know it happened 'cause I read the New York Times. People lost their houses and then they lost their minds. Whole town shaking in the devil's hand. Buildings is falling and that's not all, man. You know the town's on my mind. Oh, don't leave your happy home behind. Don't you go, 'cause I'm afraid what you'll find in good old San Francisco. I know it happened 'cause I read the New York Times. People lost their houses and then they lost their minds. Whole town shaking in the devil's hand. Buildings is falling and that's not all, man. You know that town's on my mind. Don't you leave your happy home behind. And don't you leave, 'cause I'm afraid what you'll find in good old, hey man, try to understand. Don't go to San Francisco.
Nice. Did you write that after one of the quakes?
Well, you know, I wrote that song when I was taking the bus from Winnipeg to Ottawa, Ontario.
Which is kind of an earthquake unto itself.
And, you know, you get rest stops on the bus, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And in some of those places in northern Ontario, Ned, there is nothing to do, you know. So,
Pretty bad, yeah.
you know, so you take care of whatever business you required after sitting on the bus for a couple hours. And then, but they had this book rack in this one place we stopped. And I looked at the books, nothing there I was really interested in until I saw the history of the San Francisco earthquake.
Right.
Right?
1905 or something like
Yeah,
that.
19 whenever it
Yeah.
was. And so I got the book, and I had nothing else to do. I turned the light on over the seat, right? And I read the book cover to cover. And by the time I got home, I had this. In those days, I used to smoke. That's a bad thing, but I did anyway.
Yeah.
And I quit smoking a long time ago. But one of the things you used to be able to buy at the corner store was Century Sam cigars,
Okay.
right? They were 15 cents.
But they'd last forever. Give you lots of nicotine.
Yeah, that's right. So you get Century Sam cigars, and I thought, what a great name, Century Sam, right?
Yeah.
And it was at least a century. This would be back in the 70s. I wrote that song,
Right.
You know, so it was a century ago, almost, you know. So
Yeah.
3/4 of a century.
Great. Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought, yeah, Century Sam. He was probably Century Sam back when the earthquake happened.
Yeah.
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 And
That's
yeah.
neat how it's. I love where the inspiration can come from for any given tune. You know,
Well,
it
that's just
come
it.
out of the walls. Who knows?
No, and you know, the interesting thing is, for me, is that it really wasn't about me.
Right.
You know, it was about something that happened, you know.
Yeah.
And I kind of like songs that have a narrative,
Yeah, telling the story.
that tell a story.
Yeah.
You know, so many of the songs that I've grown to love over the years, you know, are songs, the narrative, it was a trade-off between melody and lyric,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I was drawn to Dixieland back in the 60s.
Right. With the stride piano
Yeah,
styles.
I was drawn to it because in my hometown, there were a lot of the old guys that played. They played in Dixie bands at the Chez Lucien Hotel,
Okay.
you know. And you go to see them, and it was really fun.
Yeah.
And I remember being on the road in London, Ontario, playing at a place called Smales Pace. And that night, in town as well, there was the Preservation Hall Jazz Band was in town.
Up from
I
New
didn't know
Orleans.
that, but they were there.
Yeah.
But I did know that after I was finished work, I was going for a beer at the York Hotel. And who showed up at the York Hotel after they finished work with their instruments
Wow.
were the preservation.
They're probably staying there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they showed up. They had guys carrying their instruments, but the first guy to come in was the bass player, right? And he just came in. The guy brought his bass, his big upright bass in, and the guy stood next to the piano. He just stood there. There was no one else in his band there yet, just him. He just took the cover off and he started playing the bass.
Cool.
Just boom, 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 you know.
Yeah.
And everyone just sort of looked at it. And then the next thing, not 5 minutes later, this really old guy comes in and he sits down on the piano bench, takes out a little clarinet case,
Right.
opens that up, puts it together, and he starts playing.
Starts playing the licorice stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the bass player. And pretty soon the banjo player came in, you know, trombone player, trumpet player, they all came in. And the next thing you know, they were all playing.
Cool.
And
That's
then the next
fantastic.
thing you know, there was 2 trays of beer on top of the piano.
Yeah.
Right? And they looked at that and they said, well, maybe we're going to take a little break now. So they took a little break. And as turned out, I was sitting next to the table where the bass player and these guys were sitting,
Right.
just by luck.
Yeah.
And one of the what would you call them? Cub reporters
Right.
from the local university newspaper was down there trying to get a scoop on these guys, right? And anyway, he asked the bass player, he says, how long have you been with the band? Like that's sort of an opener, right?
Yeah.
And the bass player says, oh, I'm the new guy in the band. He says, I've only been with them for 40 years.
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, and one thing, they asked, you know, different questions and stuff. And then he said to him, he says, how long you've been traveling on the road? He says, yeah, we spend about half the year on the road every year.
Yeah.
And he said, how do you feel about that? He says, well, I miss some things in life. He said, what do you know, what are the things you miss? He says, well, I miss seeing my family grow up.
Yeah.
I miss seeing my grandkids grow up. These are all things I miss. I don't see them.
Yeah.
And now I would like to, you know.
Yeah.
And I hope it's not too late.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I stopped playing tours and stuff when my kid was born, and I get it, right? You kind of do that. I imagine you changed your life when with kids around, right? And but yeah, I was lucky enough to see the Preservation Hall down in New Orleans when I was down there in the,
Yes, sir.
I guess in the early '80s,
Good.
something like that.
Yeah.
And it was
There've
just
been a lot of Preservation Hall bands here.
yeah, but it was cooking. It was
Yeah.
huge.
Oh,
it
that's
was
they
really
do.
cool. Yeah.
But I liked, some these days you're gonna miss me, honey. Some these days you're gonna feel so lonely. You'll miss my hugging, you'll miss my kissing. You're gonna miss me, honey, if I go away. You feel so lonely for me only. You know, darling, you had your way. You grieve me if I leave you. You miss your papa some these days. You feel so lonely for me only. You know, honey, you had your way. You know you grieve me if I ever leave you. You miss your papa some of these days.
Lovely. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's the thing, all the with the bounce stride thing, and it's classic, right? Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like danceable.
Yep.
Even a ballad is danceable,
Yeah.
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 It's
You've been playing the trio a lot around Halifax with
Yeah,
Tom Easley and
Jeff Arsenault
Jeff Arsenault.
and Tom. Tom is my nephew.
oh,
And,
okay.
And Jeff Arsenault, when I moved here in 1974,
Yeah.
I rented a house next door to where he lived.
Oh, okay.
He was 12 or 13 at that time. And he wanted nothing more than to play drums.
Right.
And he had, anyway, and I had a young son, and he babysat him that summer. And there was a drummer leaving town here that owed me money.
And you ended up with a set of drums,
And I ended
right?
up with a set of drums.
Yeah.
And,
That's great.
and Jeff bought them with the money, or some of the, with some of the money that he had made working for me.
Yeah.
And, and then he continued on, and of course he traveled around. He traveled around with Morgan Davis. He traveled around with Morgan for a long time. He traveled around with Rita for a long time.
Yeah.
He's still traveling around with people.
Sure. Yeah.
But over
Ray
the
Bonneville.
years, Ray Bonneville, he traveled through Europe with him, and Mary Jane Lamon.
Mm-hmm. He's a great drummer.
He's one of the best.
Yeah.
There's not too many that have what he got.
Yeah. Great groove.
And Tom the same way. He's played with many, many people. But over the years, we've always got together and done something.
Had something going. Yeah. Good.
And we made an album back in 2009 or something.
Mm-hmm.
But we still play together as a trio, or we add somebody,
Right.
or
A horn player or
a
something.
horn player or whatever. It's easy to have a good time with people that you're friends with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and we've been good friends for
A long while.
a
Good.
long while. So that's good since they were kids, and
Yeah. Have you done co-writing much? Where you?
Yeah,
sit in
Tom
a
and
room
I have
with
done some
Tom?
co-writing.
Yeah.
And we did, boy, if I can remember the words, I almost have to have them in front of me.
Well, we got time. We can.
Yeah.
We can take a break and let
Why don't
the
we do
commercials
that?
run.
I'll get the words out.
Yeah.
Because he and I have done some good stuff together.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll get a.
Okay.
We'll
let's
get a
do that.
co-write.
All right. Let's
Good.
do that.
And a quick little commercial for the show. Please look Songwriters from Here and Away up online and give us a like, follow, or a share. We really appreciate it, and so do the artists. On the break, we managed to get a beverage and listen to a song that Bill wrote and put on his last album. 9 Steps, I believe, is the name of the album. And this one's called Wild Nights.
Yeah. Those were wild nights at the pavilion. Paper cups and parking lots and rock and roll. Driving movies saved my soul. Those were wild, wild nights. Those were great days at the old green door. Cover charge and jive dancing, girls all doing the stroll. Echoplex and silver tones. Oh, save my soul. Those were great days. Those were great days. Fighting and fooling around. I mean, fighting and fooling around. Looking for love across a crowded floor. Shaking it up and having fun with the moonshine up above, dancing away the doom and the gloom. Those were long weeks with a matinee sitting in on Sundays with heaven's radio, listening to the heartbeat save my soul. Those were long weeks. These are fast times. Those were long weeks. These are fast times, man. Wild Nights. You remember those, don't you, Robert?
A little walk down memory lane. You know, I love the lyrics in there. For people who might not know, the Echoplex was a delay machine that lots of bands had, or the lucky ones had.
Well, yeah, when they first come out, like everybody went out to hear the Echoplex.
Yeah, because it would add the reverb and the size would enhance the sound so much.
Yeah.
And of course the Silvertone was a guitar, and they had the amplifiers, Silvertone amplifiers, I think, and they came from Sears.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were the de facto beginner instrument that everybody got, and lots of bands.
And nowadays you can't buy them for love nor money.
They're a $5,000 item.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lovely tune, Bill. Thank you.
Well, I wish I could have remembered. It's a while since we played that one.
Well, and we don't, you know, with what I call the plague, the last few years, we just don't get out and play as much. And I was talking with it was Washboard Hank, actually, an acquaintance of mine. You know Washboard?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, he was saying he doesn't practice. I don't practice. I play, I improvise, I jam with myself, or I go out and do gigs.
Yeah.
And that's where I practice, is at gigs, you know, because I like to play. That's how much I like to play. And with the plague, of course, we just don't get out, and that's where you rehearse those tunes. So
that's right.
Wild Nights, you may not play it at home because you don't.
Yeah,
it's not in the.
It was a. I mean, it was a commodity. Right.
Yeah.
That we were trying to sell.
Yeah. It was something you wrote, and but fit the bill.
Once the writing gets done, a lot of times the song is gone. In a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still there.
Well,
obviously, it meant something to us when we wrote it. But you know what? I'm going to write again. I know.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking about writing, and a lot of my writing has been in the past. You know.
Right.
Like I wrote a song that was. I can't help myself. Make me feel good all the time. Help myself. Feel good all the time. I can't blame nobody else, no. It's that one good gal of mine. Every time I see that gal, I gotta jump right up and go. Every time I see that gal, I gotta jump right up and go. I think I just might love her now. Then again, you never know. Yeah, she's so good looking. She make a blind man see. She's so good looking. She make a blind man see. She make a lame man walk. She made a fool out of me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Every time I see that woman, I gotta jump right up and go. Every time I see that woman, I gotta jump right up and go. I think I just might love that woman. Then again, I just don't know. I can't help myself. Feel good all the time. I can't help myself. I feel good all the time. I can't blame nobody else, no. It's that one good gal of mine.
Lovely. I love it. The blues is it's a great foundation, and I love your shapes, the chords around.
Oh, thank you.
You slide through, right? And that's what makes it. That's what makes the tune, right?
Well, you know, there's so many beautiful songs. You know, there's a great piano player, Roger Calloway. You ever check him out? I remember I went to see him in Moncton one time. In fact, the band I was playing in, we were opening for the Benny Goodman alumni.
Ah,
That was the big band, and we were just opening act,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
And Roger Calloway was playing in that band with Peter Appleyard was leading it.
On Vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had bought the rights to the Benny Goodman book.
Oh, okay.
So it was called the Benny Goodman
So it's like the tribute shows of
Tribute
Elvis and all the
show,
other
except
ones,
it
but
had
this
a-
is Benny Goodman.
a
This
17-piece band.
30 years ago or whatever. Yeah.
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 And but Roger Calloway, he's an incredible piano player. Beyond, and I remember I met him backstage. He was back there smoking a great big spliff before he went on. But he was I just didn't know what to say to him because I was so in awe. of the
Awestruck.
guy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he looked at me and he said, "What's it like out there?" I said, "Oh, it's pretty good." He says, "Good." That's all he said. Good.
Yeah.
Everybody has something to say, you know. Roger Calloway, I remember I heard him playing that beautiful song, "I'm All Smiles," you know. And the way he approached it was like,
Very smooth. Love that. Yeah, and the little clusters in the middle of the chords and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something about that if you bring it into other forms, like these guys swim in that world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I saw somebody wrote up on the other day, Shan Arsenault.
Right.
He was doing some studies on Italian songs or something, or like the classical musicians of the day when classical music was sort of
In everybody's parlor.
in everybody's
Yeah.
parlor. They were the
200,
jazz
300
musicians.
years ago.
They were the jazz
Yeah.
musicians 200 years ago.
Improvising.
Yeah, they were improvising, and somebody was writing it down and trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
Basically,
Right. Yeah. Trying to formalize
probably
it.
the people that were patronizing them.
Yeah. Let's play a couple more tunes, man.
All right, I'm going to play my mother's favorite song.
Oh, good.
Okay.
There you go. That has meaning.
Once in a while, won't you try to give one little thought to me? Though someone else might be closer to your heart. Once in a while, won't you think of those moments I shared with you? Moments before we two drifted apart. In love's smoldering ember, one spark might remain. And if love still can remember, the spark could glow again. I know that I'll be contented with yesterday's memory, knowing you think of me once in a while. Once in a while, won't you try to give one little thought to me, knowing you think of me once in a while. Once in a while, won't you think of those moments I shared with you? Moments before we two drifted apart. In love, smoldering ember, one spark might remain. If love still can remember, that spark may glow again. I know I'll be contented with yesterday's memory. Knowing you think of me once in a while.
Lovely, Bill.
There
Thank
you
you.
go.
Yeah, once in a while, I had to look it up because you hear these standards, the jazz standards, the Great American Songbook, as they say.
Yeah.
And this one was written by Michael Edwards, the music, and Bud Green, who I've heard the name on many other lyrics, right?
Yeah.
And so that was Tommy Dorsey, 37, and went to number one.
You bet.
Yeah. So
that was before you were born.
yeah, it was.
Just before.
not quite, but yeah. No, that's great. And
It was before I was born too.
yeah, absolutely it was.
But it's funny, like I remember that song just because the Dorsey brothers used to have a television show. I used to watch it when I was a kid.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, well, your mom would have it on. My mom was a big band fan. She
Sure.
lived in Montreal and saw Peterson and
Oh,
all
my
the
God,
bands
yeah.
come through
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Duke and all those guys. And same with me, right? She would be whistling and singing along to these songs on in the 60s for me.
Yeah.
It was the the pop middle of the road station where they'd play that stuff and
For sure, yeah.
and she'd be singing along, whistling along. So all those melodies are very strong in your brain, and that's the thing that really holds those songs together. Is these beautiful melodies that come out of it, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
There are so many of them. And, I've been playing a lot with a guitar player, Russ Brannon.
Fabulous guitar player.
And, he has a really interesting way of harmonizing things too. And that's something I'd like to incorporate into my songwriting career.
Right.
But, you take that, a basic song like
Yep.
right? But he would play it like this.
With the semitone slides and the tritone subs. And, yeah.
And like those melodies, I can remember those melodies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Is there something about those melodies that make you remember them?
Yeah, good question, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Now, why?
Yeah. So where does it come from, right? Yeah.
So,
You're listening to Bill Stevenson here on Cove FM, and it's songwriters from here and away. And Bill, we've been sitting here for a couple hours now. I could sit here till about 2 in the morning, but
time to say goodnight.
Time to say goodnight. Do you want to do another song? Play us out, and
Okay, let's
have some
see
fun?
what I got here.
Do whatever you got. Some one of your tunes.
Here's a tune that was on our album. We won an ECMA for this album.
Excellent.
This tune was called Small Fry, and it was written by Hoagie Carmichael.
Hoagie Carmichael.
Okay.
Great.
Fairy tales can come true, can happen to you if you're young at heart. It's hard you'll find to be narrow mind if you're young at heart. You can go to extreme and have impossible schemes, laugh when your dreams come apart at the seams. Life is funny every passing day. Love is either in your heart or it's on its way. It's hard you'll find to be narrow-minded if you're young at heart. Rich as we are, we're better by far when we're young at heart. If you survive, you make 105. Think of all you derive. Be alive. You got a head start if you just get smart. Be among the very, very young at heart. If you survive, you make 105. Think of all you derive. Being alive, you got a head start. If you just get smart, be among the very, very young at heart.
Man, yeah, it's a good piano.
Yeah.
That's a really good small grand.
Nothing to
No,
do
no, but he knows what I'm talking about though.
That has
that's
nothing to do with the tuner either.
That's but you've got it perfect,
with
right?
like
It really is,
name
man.
it Charlie the tuner.
The sustain, you know.
Well, what happens is that
fantastic.
there's never too many beats, right? But there's some.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's the deal. I love this piano because it tunes up so nice.
yeah. Well, it just sounds fantastic, right?